Kia ora, g'day, and a really warm welcome to everyone to today's webinar, Connecting Voices, Unlocking Insights in Your Council. I'm Julie Walker and I'm the Chief Product and Marketing Officer at Ask Your Team, and I'm thrilled to be your host today. We know that councils across New Zealand and Australia are collecting more and more feedback, and they're collecting it from community consultations to frontline service requests and everything in between. But connecting all of that feedback together and making sense of it all, that's really the hard part. So today we're going to go beyond surveys, beyond emails, and we're going to show you how insights that already exist in your organisation can spark action, improve services, and even protect your people. So we'll be together for about 30 to 40 minutes today, but feel free to pop any questions into the Q&A in Zoom as we go, and we'll leave time at the end for questions. We'll try and get through as many as we can. And yes, this session is being recorded and will be shared with you afterwards. So let's dive in. I'm joined by someone who's doing community engagement and customer service work day to day and doing it brilliantly. Please join me in welcoming Tania Russell, the Community Engagement and Development Manager at Taupō District Council. Welcome, Tania. Are you there? There we are. Welcome. Oh, wonderful.
Kia ora, Julie. Excuse my technical non-advancement with my buttons. Hi.
All fine. Zoom issues always happen, but welcome. It's so great to see you.
It is so lovely to be here with you today too, and with all of the people jumping in and saying hi too. So it's very exciting.
Oh, it is exciting. So before we get into the nuts and bolts of the topic, but can you share a little bit about your background, your role, what led you to the role? What does your day-to-day look like? Give people a little bit of Tania.
Absolutely. Kora koutou katoa, ko Tania Russell tuku I am a Taupō local, so I grew up in this beautiful rohe. I have a 1 in a million space across New Zealand, and we're incredibly invested in it. I had the beautiful upbringing here in Taupō, worked amongst tourism and hospitality and everything before doing a bit of an overseas adventure to Australia and meeting my delightful Australian husband before having our gorgeous daughter and realising it really does take a village to bring up a family. And so as a family we relocated back home to Taupō here, especially after finding black widow spiders in the barbecue in Sydney, and with an 18-month-old going, I'm just not overly comfortable with it touching those. So we moved back here, and I guess it's sort of, I'd come from a private background, so and working with organisations in Australia around health and wellbeing and supporting their community initiatives, and then came back into Taupō, and I really wanted to, I guess, give something back to the community that grew me effectively and is now growing my daughter, and the idea of being able to placemate for future generations in this beautiful space and being a kaitiaki for our environment was such a big draw card, and so I've been with Taupō District Council now for just on 6 years, and yeah, I have been working across our customer environments for the majority of that time, and yeah, recently sort of dove into the community side of our organisation, which is really exciting. So, and my gorgeous little 8-year-old is now thriving in this environment. You can't get her out of the lake. She's in there 24/7, 365 days of the year, regardless of temperature. And yeah, our little family absolutely loves it here, especially surrounded by friends and family. So it's fantastic. Yeah, we're really delighted to be here.
Oh, fantastic. So what does success look like for you and your team when it comes to community engagement, informing leadership? What does good look like for you?
Good looks like our team is happy in what they do and can thrive in what they do, that we've created an environment that that they feel secure and empowered to be there for our organisation and also for our community. We have a little tagline for our team. It's our community, your voice. And so it's really understanding what is the wants and needs and the aspirations of our community, and how do we work with them to ensure that we thrive economically, fiscally, environmentally, in every way, and ensuring that as council goes through its regulatory requirements and everything like that, that we're really being that trusted educator as well in that space, because let's face it, there is nothing simple about local government, and there's nothing simple about feedback around local government either. So it's really critical that we can understand what our community is going through and be that support factor for them.
Yeah, well, and that's a really great segue. So let's set the scene about collecting feedback, and councils like Taupō are collecting data constantly. It's not always easy then to put those pieces together. So what have been some of the biggest challenges that you've been facing in making sense of all of that feedback?
I think ideally it's that whole process of, you're right, we collect so many different versions of data. So it's requests for service and complaints are a core sense of a factor of data, right? And so right through to how people use our facilities, how they want to engage with us. And so there's feedback as one core, and then we have public consultation, of course, which is another critical trigger through that thing. And I guess we, as an organisation, we become quite siloed in the different ways that we interact, and there's no overarching view or themes and that sort of thing that we've had, because everybody dives into their individual data. And so for a long time, we knew that we were sitting on a bit of a gold mine, but there was never, I guess, the resource or necessarily the skill available to actually have the time to dive in, because, the last 5 years have been a roller coaster post-COVID. Trying to get the economic balance to the innovative balance in local government has been really, really struggling. And so to then drive data outcomes and have the time to dive into the data rather than just your day-to-day is really, really hard. And we found it almost impossible when you look at all the data cues.
Yeah, so when you're doing all of your planning or your prioritization of projects and put your resource planning and things, what were the symptoms of you've got those silos of data?
Historically, your capital program was driven by the infrastructure team, right? And so you've got roading platforms, you've got requirements coming through from multiple different agencies on what they need us to do, right through to consultation from a long-term plan or an annual plan basis on, the community priorities and what they would like us to deliver. You've got your day-to-day. You and I have talked about the day-to-day mums wanting shade sails on playgrounds, and how do we prioritize that over a road safety regime and that sort of thing. And, look, it's been a hard slog in order to sort of say, what are the true themes and requirements in order to be able to make a decision knowing that it's for the benefit of the community. And I think historically there has been a strong focus from an infrastructure standpoint with a financial backing. And so that's sort of where that's led to. And then the elected members have taken guidance from council officers, which is amazing. And then, and also through the public consultation processes. But, there is a lot that we do that comes outside of council process around consultation. And so, we wanted to know more. Yeah.
Right. So at some point then you decided to try something different, to start connecting those external data sources in a new way. So what sparked the shift?
So it was a few years ago, we decided to refocus or restart the way that we work with our customers. And so we looked at how we could, support them better. And so we looked at from a shopfront standpoint with our customer centres and stuff, and we have them operating 7 days a week. We also, from a data standpoint, I wanted to know what our customers thought. And we didn't really have an analytical source to be able to go back and say, our customers think we do well in this space. And so I started to research, what are the options out there as far as customer feedback loops and that sort of thing. And for local government, it's really hard because in a face-to-face environment, You can absolutely support that human and you can delight them and you can be the most amazing person. But if you've said no to their consent, that's not going to necessarily give you a great review or a great feedback outcome as to that environment. And so your traditional feedback loops were never quite the right cookie cutter that I was looking for, because I wanted us to be able to have critical themes as to why we were being rated a certain way or what we could potentially do better and what kind of innovation we could bring. And so we looked in the market for quite some time, but internally we started to shift into a customer-centric culture. And so we have our external customer charter that talks about how our commitment is to our customer. And then internally, we put together a leader-led project called Our Customer Focus. And it was about how we're putting the customer at the heart of everything we do, every decision, every process. The customer was always at the heart of it. And it took probably a good 2 years to really sink in. And that leader-led approach was critical, and it was critical because it came from our CE. So she put it in her KPIs, and then it became every leader's KPI around a commitment to our customers. Mm-hmm. And so that behaviour shift over time and that learning, and there was lots of toolkits put together in order to help enable the teams to lift their skill set and that sort of thing. But we still had no way of judging if what we were doing was working or if what we were doing was just the same old, same old. And then probably nearly 12 months ago, I had just a happy meeting with a gentleman called Geordie from Ask Your Team, who was actually meeting with a colleague, and I totally bombarded their meeting and took over. And it turned out that Geordie had been working on something with the rest of your amazing team on something that could potentially be fit for purpose for our team. And so that sort of started our journey with Ask Your Team.
So a little bit serendipitous. So we, and to explain to some others, we decided that we would help Taupō Council look at the perception data. So it's not just about the quantitative information that you're collecting, it's about people's feelings. And so how do we pull some of that perception and sentiment information in from existing data that you already had? So what was the data that we ended up pulling in together for you and then combining with some of the survey responses we
shared with you guys 12 months of service request information. And so it was just under 20,000 individual service requests that had come in into the business. And it was everything from a barking dog through to a tree, through to everything else, because we wanted to see, we had a gut feeling that a lot of our service requests were dog related or animal control related. We call our big five a big five for a reason: dogs, trees, waters, roads, But we wanted to see, you're right, what the sentiment was behind it. If there was something that we were doing from an animal control standpoint that made it really annoying or really aggravating, or and so was it process, was it what I was really keen to understand, even from a building consent standpoint, as to whether or not the actual process of applying for the building consent infuriated people, or if they were relatively okay with it. And so it's that whole thing of good, bad, or ugly we wanted to know. And so that so Marcus and Geordie took that 12 months worth of data and they turned it into this amazing report, which gave us some really critical insights that we did not see coming.
Well, let's start sharing that with our wonderful audience. Let's talk specifics about, there were some really compelling things that were blind spots to you beforehand, that information, and combining some of that customer service, those customer service request data with other information. What did you uncover? What was the real sort of tangible things that you learned that you didn't know?
The biggest tangible that we took from it, and the raw truth of the matter was, we had 86 residences across Aotearoa that were a significant safety risk that were tied to gang-related activity. And there was no formulative response in our systems that flagged those. So if they had a dog registered to that address, it was flagged through that space. But a building control officer would not know that, because that was in a different part of our system. And so, nor would one of our parks team walking past or anybody else, sort of thing. So it became a very high level, very high quick. We need to do something better about this in order to ensure the safety of our teams and make it really, really clear that these residences are known for this reason. And so it triggered an absolute response from our exec team and our leadership team straight away, to ensure that we enabled the systems to effectively ensure the safety of our staff.
So,
Yeah.
so let's walk through that. I mean, this is a really tangible example. So before, one, you weren't aware that there were gang-related activities happening in all of those residences. I think
Not at all.
you had sort of an idea that there were maybe 15 beforehand, and there were 86.
Yeah.
And then someone would call in with a complaint about a dog barking or a dog running around, and then the animal control people would go out by themselves to a home that potentially could be very dangerous for them. And
Exactly.
so you've uncovered, oh gosh, this is a connection that we hadn't really made between, all of these
satisfaction
pieces.
themes we were looking for, Jules, in any shape or form. But at the same time, it was like, wow, this is just the tip of the iceberg as to some of the information we hold in
Right.
our data that we haven't, dived into before. And so it activated it activated a review of our security protocols and how our teams approach different environments. It activated safety flags in systems, in multiple systems, in order to give that clarity to staff to know and understand that's what they were walking into. It supported, from an animal control or compliance team standpoint, it significantly supported them, because not every site has a dog at it, and not every site has a flag on it that it's potentially a menacing dog or anything like that. And so it gave us the ability to flag those down and then work closely with the local police to make sure that we had their support through that process as well. And they found that data insightful. Not that we shared the residences, but the fact that we could name them and ask for support if we needed to, because of course privacy protocols are critical. But it was about knowing that when we called them for their support for a site, if we were to go onto a property, that was the reason behind it. And so, and being able to have that open conversation with them, they were really supportive of it.
So I'm still amazed. It's the best story to go in looking for community sentiment and to come out with a potentially dangerous situation for your staff and the action plan that you put in place. So from the time that you learned all this information to putting that action plan in place that ensured the safety and security of the council staff, what was that timeline?
Probably about 4 months.
Oh, fantastic. So, and then what's been the reaction from the staff?
It's actually been quite a really good learning curve as to what systems we can trigger and what systems we couldn't trigger, but also that just this overlying theme of their safety is most important has been such a respectful way to approach it, and they've responded in due kind amazingly well as well. It's that whole thing of knowledge is, as containment knowledge is power to an extent, and therefore being able to ensure their safety going into a situation with that understanding.
Awesome. And what about the leadership? What about the leadership across the council? What was their reaction to this particular part?
The first response was wow, and yeah, and so, and then it was like, right, now we know we've got to do something, right? And it did, it ended up working in parallel really strongly with our business excellence team, who have been doing quite a significant health and safety review of our practices in that. And it did show that our different departments do things differently and that there's no consistency across it. And so that has created a much bigger piece of rolling work that is still in progress within the organisation outside of this little trigger that created the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so was that the only thing that we uncovered as we looked into that data? Were there other insights and actions that you were able to pull out?
In all honesty, there was so much in that first run, and that was without the feedback component. That was without asking for feedback on how we'd supported them. That was purely just the insights. I mean, we were able to turn around and sort of declare that 50% of our service requests come under our environmental services team. And so that is our, our animal compliance, building and resource consenting, and our health and liquor licensing. And so it showed us that, in order to, I guess, significantly create a shift in customer culture, then, we have a good win to focus on that team as an initial phase and how we can better support them in working with their customers. And then from that sort of moment onwards, it was diving into, are there different parts of our district that potentially have, different concerns or different feedback through that process. And so, yeah, we know we're doing a bit of revitalisation work down in Turangi, because we know that they are very, very proud of their part of the district and want to work with us on that and that sort of thing. So it's, I guess initially it was like, oh, we've got so much more information, and how do we start to unpick it and then prioritize it ourselves before we then take it to the organization? So, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. And so how has that information and that prioritization helped in your role as community engagement? So we took customer service data, but that then can elevate across into what you were describing as what good looks like for community management or community engagement.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the next step, once we formally jumped in and signed on with you guys from February, it's about February this year, we started to push out the customer survey information and understand on everything from those that interacted with us through a service request to those that were interacting with us in our venues. And we kicked off a venue survey on the summer concert weekend. So the last, Auckland Anniversary weekend in Taupō is a pretty big one. And so we wanted to see what the response would be. And so we tested a little pilot for 4 days over the long weekend at the AC bars in our pools to see if the customers enjoyed the experience at the pools before we sort of started to take it out to the wider venues and frontline services and that sort of thing. And it came back that 82% of people who responded were absolutely delighted with their experience of the AC bars. There was a little bit of a shift in the space around accessibility. And this is another little story that you and I have chatted about, Jules, and it's around, we thought that the pools were amazingly accessible. There was a lift, there was multiple accesses and that sort of thing, but it turned out the customers didn't really think so either. And we'd known for a wee while that the lift had been breaking down, and we didn't really understand the impact. And then, of course, we started to get our customer data back, and I pulled aside the venues manager and I said to him, look, you've got amazing customer data. They love the staff, they love the cleanliness, they love the facilities, it's ticking all the boxes, but we're missing one on accessibility. And while it's not a big red mark, it's certainly not a green one. And so he's like, what do we do? And I said, well, we need to fix the lift. And I said, and if we've got members who we know need accessibility support, then we need to get better at communicating with them when we don't have that facility. And so since then, what we've done is, because the lift is old and we've been doing some renewal work up there, and it's about making that building and that venue so much more accessible. But we actually notify them when it goes out. So we'll notify, because we have these gorgeous ladies who come in every morning at 8:30 to do their aquafit class. And there are some who need the disability parking and that sort of thing, and they just need a little help because their pools are downstairs. And so we give them a little text in the morning to say, ladies, the lift is out. Please drive around and come in the back staff entrance and we'll get you into the pool from there and stuff. And so that sent the customer sentiment up through the roof, and we put the lift in the renewals maintenance process to ensure that we can get that upgraded sooner rather than later. And then there's been an overall conversation with our local disability access group to make the facility a lot more open to anybody. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And one of the things that I really love about that story is it comes back to this perception data, right? Which is, here's what we perceived internally about our service and all of the good things, but there was a blind spot that gets shared as part of uncovering the feedback that you already had in place. And just by, even though you couldn't fix the underlying issue, you can adjust things to improve that experience with your community, and it doesn't take this, big, huge thing. It's just a little bit of care that you can add to someone's experience with the council, which I think is fantastic.
And that's it. And it comes back to that having the customer at the heart of what we do and that human centric approach. And it's like, we could have put the replacement of the lift on this massive work plan that could have taken 2 years to get it through and all that sort of thing. Or we could just call them and let them know that there's an alternative or
Yeah.
there's an issue, give
Yeah.
them the choice rather than letting them rock up and then having a bad experience. Let's give them the choice as to how they want to do it and know that we're aware. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
We've got some questions coming in, so I just wanted to make sure that I give people the chance to ask a question. Here we go. First question, were you able to use or plug in any other data to give additional context to what you were hearing from the community?
Well, since we put the original data in, we've now got, I think, 20 different surveys out across the district, which is now bringing core feedback through. So every customer-facing environment, so whether it's our libraries, museums, pools, they all have an individual survey in it so that we have very specific feedback and insights to those locations. And our next phase from a community standpoint, as we're working, of course, we're about to go into significant planning on our long-term plan. As we enter LTP year 2, we're about to look at that refresh, and we're sort of starting to overline information and data insights from a forward planning. So playgrounds is a huge thing, and our Parks and Reserves team, we're currently looking at some work. We're doing some work with Sport Waikato around places and spaces, and we're activating the QR code feedbacks into every reserve and playground across the district. So I think there's about 64 different environments that we're going to activate to get core information around, are these places used and how they're used, and then how would they like them to be used and set up. And then providing that critical engagement piece across from the team on a face-to-face level to understand, what could this space be, and let's build the plan and get it into the LTP without making any promises. But it's that whole question of, does every reserve need a playground on it, or do some of the playgrounds need to be soccer goals, or and having this balance between sports or play, or and that sort of thing, or just natural play in gullies and that kind of stuff. So that's sort of the next phase as to where we're taking it.
Yeah, and I think the core of that is just connecting at the point of when people are using the community services, and I think that's a really good thing.
Absolutely, and getting as much data now so that when we go into LTP consultation, we've now got our community voice data aligned with our consultation data for our elected members to be able to make, I guess I'd like to say, a more structured decision through that process, especially with prioritisation of projects in the different years and that sort of thing.
Yeah, fantastic. I've got another question that's come in, and I don't know the answer to this, so I'm throwing it out there at a risk. And the question is, I'm interested in what feedback you got in respect to homelessness. I know it's such a big challenge for councils, but I don't know if we dug into that in the data, did we?
We didn't see anything significant specific to homelessness. There was some high-level feedback around graffiti and that sort of thing in the service request information, but there wasn't anything specific to homelessness. However, my community development team have recently been doing some work in this space, working with MSD and the local police, because we have had a bit of an influx in this area and of homeless coming into town. We have a few known ones that we work really closely with, but there's been some new influxes, and so just working closely with them on the, what kind of support can we provide, and also we've had a couple of threatening and violent incidences, and so how do we work better and loop back with those teams to make sure that they have the protocols in place to keep themselves safe as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think there's certainly some things that we could do if that was an issue for a particular council that
it does make me want to take another look at it, Jules, to go, oh, did we miss something?
I know,
there?
It's a good question. I don't know if we did. All right, I've got a tactical question for you. It was just around the QR codes and how we're getting that feedback back. So how do you put them up? Is it a poster? Is it, something more permanent? I know that you're putting them on the side of your vans as you go around community and
We're putting it
engage
on the
with the
side of,
community.
we've got an engagement trailer coming and we're calling it Trailer McTrailer Face for now, but yes, we're putting the QR code on the side of McTrailer. But no, we've got them, they're inside. When they're inside, they're a nice, easy, just a laminated poster that the beautiful team at Ask Your Team helped us create in line with our branding guidelines and some of our photographs of our venues and stuff. So when you're in there, you can tell that it's that venue and you're giving that feedback. The ones we're having made up for the playgrounds, we're having them made as a bit of an A5 core flute so that it's durable. And we have a local sign writer who can, they can reskin the core flutes. So as we need to change the locations or anything, because the QR codes are GPS tracked or GPS located. So if we need to move them around or anything, we can have them reskinned and updated at a later time. So
yeah. So permanent enough to stay in place, but not too permanent that we can change them out.
Sustainable as well. Yeah.
Great. All right. I'm going to switch a little bit. We might come back to a couple of questions, but just as we've been working together and looking at themes and insights and things, we've got a whole bunch of people that are listening today, and they've all got questions about specific services or how did we do it and things. So what advice would you give other councils as they're sitting on all of this data? They're also struggling with things like survey fatigue with their community. They've got limited resources. They've got a leadership team that doesn't really understand what might come out of that. What are the things that you would suggest if someone was looking at how do I get started, or what advice would you give to people as they are looking at where they can best put their resources?
Look, in honesty, I think the success of the program and the buy-in across the organisation was 100% our executive team and our leadership team having that vision of having the customer at the heart of everything we do, and having that as one of our CE's KPIs, that the elected members have oversight into as well. And they love hearing that the customers are providing us with feedback and that sort of thing, because I think our elected members tend to get a lot of the negative feedback of how much we do wrong. So it's nice for them to get the polar opposite as well of what we do well. And so having that in there as a KPI that we're consistently reporting on was a critical move. But I think also internally we had to start small, and we had to start as to why we wanted to do that. And it's been quite a journey. And it's been quite a journey of fighting the good fight as well internally within my team, and saying this is setting the tone of how our bare minimum of how we look after our customers, which is great customer experiences, and ensuring that we were setting them up and having the skill set and the training and basis in there. And we have amazing people in these places, right? So I think that was an incredibly big blessing. And then it was finding the right partner. In all honesty, finding the right partner. And it came down to that question of, do I onboard an analyst to sit there and go through all this data? Or do I work with an organisation who has it ready to go and can work with us? And in all honesty, the data that I gave Geordie and Marcus the first time around, it was so dirty because our systems were so old, and they still are. We're still halfway through an update or an upgrade into our ERP system. So we're still in the,
was this level of above faxed emails.
It was almost sort of, I felt like I was handing Marcus a microfiche, he kind of looks at me like it's really dark, it's really dirty. I was like, yeah. And the fact that he just made it so simple, and the cost of the partnership was less than what I could get an analyst for. So it just made so much sense to actually work on it, and outsourcing that you guys do it best. So why would I try and recut that wheel myself? So by doing that and working in that as a partnership, and unpicking it together. And the fact that the team, including yourself and Stace, you've unpicked every question I've had, right? And sometimes I'm like, just do it, just go, it's great. And other times I'm like, oh, I'd really, really like it to do something a bit different. And the flexibility behind it and being looked after by Tina, even just to build the surveys, the fact that you can build a survey in less than 5 minutes and have that QR code printed just makes the whole thing easy. And when we look at what we try to do as an organisation, smarter, not harder is our critical cue. And this just made life easy and made it easy to report to our CE that what we're doing is working, and easy to be able to give her the themes and insights she wanted to be able to share of some of the amazing mahi that our teams do and that the community loves, because we get very, very, I guess, siloed in that toxic social media space where all you hear about is everything we do badly. And there has been this heightened angst over the last few years toward local governments from, I call it the very vocal minority. And we never hear from the unvocal majority as to what we do well or not. And so it's that whole thing of how do we share both sides of the story? And how do we use that to engage our organisation as well, and to, for some people to hear that someone has commented and said that they've done an amazing job and they helped them, that's a huge thing. And especially if they're having a rough day, that can lift a person exponentially. So having the right partner to trust with our data and trust with that process was really critical for us. And we love the fact that we're growing with you guys as well. And I've kidnapped you to take you with me to my new role, and we're going to do the community stuff.
We'll grow with you, absolutely.
As well as I'm going to use you for my community data now, as well as continuing to grow the customer side. It's really, really important. So and to the point where we've now included you guys in our ERP upgrade, and we're integrating our systems to make it even easier for us to do that data sharing files to ensure that the feedback is in a really good time loop with that customer. So
Well, so the intent of this conversation wasn't for you to tell everyone how great you think we are, but I love that you're doing that. But thank you.
Honestly, it made my life so much easier to actually be with you guys. So it's I'm certainly not ashamed of plugging that, but at the same time, it is absolute genuine honesty, because it's, as I said, it'd been something had been batting around in my head for quite some time as to how do we solve this. And the solution was not we didn't solve it, it's us, your team solved it. But you did it in line with what I needed, which was amazing.
Great. All right. Well, I'm conscious of the time. And you've shared so much of what you've been doing and the amazing work that you and your team have been able to do. Congratulations on the new role. I know it's not really new for you anymore, but congratulations. And thank you so much for sharing those stories with us today. I'm so inspired of how all the work or the insights that we're able to share have really turned very quickly into being able to do some different things that connect with community and improve our perception data and KPIs. That's the plan.
That is absolutely plan. And thank you so much for your time, Julie. And you and Stace have, as I said, you guys have helped me so much, and Geordie and Marcus and stuff. And it's an absolute pleasure to share. And I think as local governments, we don't necessarily have a lot of bang in our buck as far as budgets and that sort of thing. And so the ability to share that we found these solutions through working with you guys is, to me, it's a critical thing, right? We should share more.
Absolutely. All right. Well, to everyone that's joined us today, thank you so much for spending part of your day with us. We've got a couple of reflection questions, I think, that, Stacey, we're going to pop up. But if there's one takeaway, I think it's this, that the answers for some of your questions in your council might actually already be in front of you. So the challenge is connecting those things together and getting an opportunity to see things that you haven't seen before. So if you'd like to explore how we might be able to help you like we helped Tania and the team, to bring that approach to your own council, we would love to chat. You can reach out directly or reply. We're going to be following up to everyone with an email, or you can jump on and book a discovery session. There's no obligation, there's no selling or anything, just we'd be able to show how we could help support you. But until then, take care, and thank you again, Tania, and thank you again, everyone.